Welcome back to Opinion Court. Time to get the expert views on the President's State of the Nation address. To my right is Kwame Owino. He is our economic expert from the Institute of Economic Affairs. To my left is Bobby Mkangi, a governance expert, formerly of the Committee of Experts who wrote the Constitution. And of course, Prof stays with us for this discussion, I beg your pardon. And we'll focus on corruption, national cohesion, and the economy. Let's start with corruption. Bobby, I'll come to you. Are you satisfied with the President's explanation on the war on graft? He basically said, look, funds have been recovered where we can. We have a special division of the High Court set up dealing with it. Further, we have institutions that are really mandated to deal with corruption. Did that suffice in terms of the national concern surrounding graft?
I think Kenyans' concern with graft is zero tolerance, that we must not see corruption in this country, and especially amongst senior state officers in public office. And the message that the President communicated today is a narrative that Kenyans have been with for a couple of months now, that we have a number of cases in court, that we've changed the leadership of the anti-corruption body, that we've come up with a multi-agency approach, etc., etc. But I think Kenyans want to hear much more about what steps will be taken, and especially administrative, and if those could also become legal, the better. And especially for the President, where the corruption touches his backyard. A fifth of his cabinet had to go late last year because of corruption. Very senior public officers have been implicated. We wanted to hear what governance structures, what changes in the governance structure, administrative and legal, that the President, that the Presidency, that the Executive is going to take, so that we do not deal with corruption post-event. Because by that time, and as we've seen, over 300 cases are in court. We are making, and the President made the same complaint, that the process is long and winding, money is lost. By this time, children have died because they have lacked medicine. By that time, people are dying on the roads because the law enforcement agencies are not working properly. So this thing of saying we're going to deal and to catch the thieves after they have stolen, I don't think that suffices.
Them before they
we need to stop the corruption, and I did not hear much on that agenda.
As a numbers man, Kwame, it's often surprising because when the government is trying to fix a problem, it tends to pour more money into a money situation, and basically that's what the administration has done when it comes to fighting corruption as well. Is that effective?
It isn't effective, but I think let's go back to what the President says, which is basically he's saying we recovered the money. So it's the same theme from what we had last year, which is no money was lost. It doesn't matter that I have dishonest people running state departments, but be assured we'll recover the money if they try to steal it. That's not perfectly satisfactory. I also think that the force with which the President spoke last year regarding corruption was not much this year. In my view, the chapter on corruption this year was a bit more subdued. And so yes, he's saying that we have refurbished, or rather we've provided opportunities for the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission, and obviously that I have completely no confidence in the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission. Even if it was run by angels, I don't think it will do anything because it's badly designed. Very badly designed. Within it itself, as of course, as we know last year, were also some
deliberate by Parliament, you think?
Partly by Parliament, yes. Partly by Parliament, but remember that some of these names are actually proposals that come from the executive itself. So obviously you have some people who work in the private sector coming with this view that they're symbolic heads, but if the structure is completely done and most of the corruption is caught after the fact, if we are not stopping corruption from happening in the first place, I don't think much has happened. And what could the President have done? I think he could have done two things. He should have said, look, the Auditor General provides every year a list, and has provided this for all our lives, a list of people of specific offices. Like just this month it's been reported that a certain state office reported an account, changed an account by hand. Basically a formal government document on bank records was changed by hand. He should have said, look, I am catching X, Miss or Mr., and they will be suspended until this matter gets resolved. So again, we're just waiting for this thing to come. Parliament will make noise and everything else. I think the proactive nature of a president when we have such a crisis, I think he came half of the way. He's definitely concerned. I cannot be
say that he doesn't care.
I cannot fault his concern, but I don't think the president has a view that, look, we need to break down this structure and actually build new structures for fighting corruption.
Right. Prof, what do you think on corruption?
I think he said a lot of things, but one significant aspect of the speech with regard to corruption was that you could learn that the anger with which the president spoke about graft last year has come down. It has toned down, and I saw a president, and even he spent less time in his speech on corruption. If you realize, he quickly moved over after reiterating the fact that there would be no security cows.
What do you think that is? Disappointment?
I think in a nutshell, the president has given up on the fight against corruption. You could see from the speech he doesn't know what to do. Actually, he's stuck. And that is corroborated by the statements he has made abroad. He leads a country with a lot of skills in stealing, and so he ended up, and what was very pathetic about that speech with regards to corruption is he ended up blaming the judiciary, and he said the judiciary is not doing a good job. Then he even tried to shield the executive from claims of corruption, because there are so many people who have been implicated. Some are still serving in the government, have been mentioned, and then he focused on wastage in the devolved units, but forgot that he had even admitted that in his own office, the office of the president, is keeping some of the most corrupt people. So in a nutshell, you could see he says 1 trillion shillings have been pumped into the developed units, but very little has been used well, but he could not state the figure that has been pumped in national government, that especially the executive, and has been used well. So he was desperate to shield the executive from accusations of corruption, but still blame another person for the mess in which we are.
In fact, you've touched on judiciary so very briefly before we wind up on corruption. But he does say, and the Jubilee argument always is, the back has to stop with the institutions that are mandated to do this. Is that not in fact true, that really, when a case goes to court, it must be dealt with expeditiously, that the investigating arms must do their work properly?
If you look at the way we are talk about the judiciary, we seem to be ignorant of a couple of things. There is the investigative arm of the CID. The CID group, the Criminal Investigations Group, has to do the investigation. There is the Director of Public Prosecutions involved. Then there is the actual prosecution in the judiciary. Now, if you take a case in court which is badly investigated, just the other day you have seen Suita Mwangi is a free man over Tokyo. Who pays for that money? Now, do you blame the judiciary for releasing Suita Mwangi, or should the judiciary just decide that Suita Mwangi is guilty until they see evidence? So
the point being, the other institutions that are part of the
not working, and even what Kwame has said with regard to EACC, it has become a clearing house. There are people who have been mentioned. The president must take the lead and say, you in the IEBC you have been mentioned, you in the office of the deputy president you have been mentioned. You cannot be in my government and you are mentioned in this. Take off and let the judiciary do its work while new Kenyans are doing the job. But the president has not acted on that. So I think he has given up on corruption.
On corruption, all right. Let's move swiftly to the question of cohesion. And the president tied development to equity and promoting cohesion. He's saying we're building roads, 3,000 kilometers, etc. They're being built all over the country. This is equity. This is promoting cohesion. It's talking about the standard gauge and extending it should be operational by June 2017 to benefit the entire country. Is that strategy of equitable development, quote unquote, what is most necessary in building cohesion for Kenya today?
The president, using the phraseology used today, the nationalist covenant, nationalist promise, right. Incessantly reiterating on the issue of unity, as you're saying, tying cohesion and development.
Right.
And we note his administration for the development he's been able to achieve in terms of infrastructure, health, and all other sectors. I think any Kenyan who's been able to benefit from this would be thankful. And I think the other point is we need to, and I think Professor alluded to this, the issue of what cooperation and collaboration has been done to achieve this. I didn't hear that come so much, only that being noted as a nationalistic achievement. Be that as it may, I think one thing that this nationalist covenant, which I have to point out was betrayed right after independence, but we tried to rescue it from August 2010. One of the things that the founding leaders of this nation did miss, and unfortunately I'm hearing the message being repeated, is that in nation building, which is tied to constitutional building, we are not looking at the primordial instincts, the aspect of representative and substantive thinking that makes people communal, makes people come together, but we're thinking about the project. And if you get a road, if you get a hospital, do not mind, do not ask where this comes from. Unfortunately, even in 2007, after we had seen our economy grow, you see what happened within 2 days. We did talk about economic growth through the rail administration, etc. But if you don't do the underlying things that make Kenyans feel like Kenyans, that bring them together,
then the projects mean
make them cohesive, then at the end of the day, this will mean nothing. And unfortunately, that is what I had to be missing in the speech today, and we are missing that point. I wish we had had more to do with unity, and especially now that you're going into election.
Let me pose the same question to you, Kwame, because it's development, but is it, development just for the sake of? Does that development, will it hold the country together going into a 2017 election?
Well, I think the attitude that the administration has toward, especially those that are perceived not to have supported it politically, is more important than throwing projects at people. Because I think Kenya has passed the point where you can give people the impression that I am rewarding you. No, it's their taxes. And people understand that. So to simply say that you're constructing a railway line all the way from Mombasa to Malaba and to Kisumu in one area, people don't have to thank you for that. They pay taxes. And that's the responsibility. And that's part of the manifesto. So part of it is the rhetoric that our leaders adopt when we have national conversations, in my view, is more important. A genuine conciliatory tone, which I think could have been adopted as well, is more important. And the president himself, perhaps, should have said, look, I am more interested in these things. Let me hear from you as well what more you'd like us to do to get us to bridge this gap. As opposed to, this is our interpretation of what it takes to be cohesive. So if you guys don't like it, then what else do you need?
Prof, I'm going to hold you because we must wind up, but I want to touch on economy, and please, if you would also contribute on the same. I'll stay with you, Kwame, because on the economic question, he basically said, look, we're a middle-income country. The world is celebrating us. Projections are good. Yet at the same time, the debate has been, I don't feel that I am now, middle class, like the rest of the country doesn't feel it's necessarily moved into this other bracket. And he blamed that on what Professor spoke about earlier, which is really county governments which should be giving you the day-to-day services. That is the missing link in terms of appreciating economic growth and what you're feeling on the ground as the impact. Is that a reasonable explanation to you?
No, it's disingenuous. Partly because if you look at every 100 shillings of taxes that are spent in Kenya, county governments spend about 19 to 20 shillings. Okay? Fully 70 shillings are spent by the national government. So to put the burden of making Kenyans public services entirely available on the backs of people who actually receive only 20 out of 100 is a bit of shifting that. So yes,
I think there's common responsibility. A lot of money.
Well, but the national government spends more than 1 trillion on its own.
Okay.
So that's
and he also talked about putting people back to work, saying 27,000 jobs from SGR alone. We've had other figures of 800,000 each year for the last 2 years. Yet at the same time, IMF is saying we're not creating the jobs in the right places. And then he gives the explanation and says, look, now you can create businesses for yourselves. We have a more, robust, open business environment, etc. Is this how Kenyans should be thinking? Should we stop looking at the government and waiting for it to give young people jobs and go out there and get your own job, start your own business, apply for the youth fund?
I think he did a fantastic thing, to be honest. By scrapping all levies. Actually, today's speech, in my view, was like the old budget speeches, where the minister would say, we've done this, at least the policy initiatives that are big. But the president is just walking into a corner where he's going to be cornered by the opposition. Why only coffee? There are levies for all.
I'll take you back to the question, because it's not about coffee, it's about jobs.
No,
young people are out of jobs.
No, but he said by these deregulatory measures that I'm making, we are going to have a robust economy that's going to create jobs. But are you asking us to create jobs only around coffee, which is also regionally concentrated? So my view is, he should have said, every crop that is grown in Kenya, if I'm going to scrap licenses and levies, let me do it for all of them. And that resonates with the question of spreading prosperity across all of us.
All right, final comments.
I know we are short on time, but the quick thing about cohesion, quickly, is that the president invited the opposition to criticize but give alternatives. I think some of the alternatives, the president has them. When you appoint people in government from two sections of the country and you recycle them, some of them, you know, you can do the opposite. So he even knows the answers to some of the things he's doing. And what Kwame is saying is that you can build a lot of things in a county, but as long as people don't look like they're socially included in the running of government, the cohesion itself does not go. But critically, I think, looking at the entire speech, and I would say this, that our president probably has missed the main thing. For example, in terms of cohesion and with regard to international policy, some people can feel Article 10, which talks about the national values, about inclusiveness, and also about patriotism. They think that, for example, the matter of Migingo, it might look out of order. But Migingo, some people have been posting things on the internet that the reason why he does not deal with Migingo is that it does not touch on his own community directly. So in that case, the people there don't feel to be part of the nationalist discourse that he's talking about. So he needs to do it right. Touch on the small things which don't even need money, but which can make people feel that they're part of this nationalist discourse. On that one, he scores 0 because he has missed a lot of important points. All right,
Bobby, final comments briefly, sir, if you would.
I think the nationalist covenant should be transformed, it should metamorphose to the nationhood covenant, bringing unity, cohesion amongst Kenyans. And I think this is the discourse that we should have today, hence, especially because you're getting into an electioneering period, and we know, I think the affairs, the events of that we saw in Parliament today are actually what the statement of what the state of the nation is today.
Really is.
And if we do not look into, in whatever way the message was passed, if we do not look at those issues, and we are getting into an electioneering period, and we are treating things business as usual, then we'll have missed the point. So I think it's an agenda that the executive and the opposition need to get together and bring Kenyans together towards that end.
Kwame, final comments, briefly, please.
Well, I think it's a good thing that the president stayed in. I made a joke of the disruption at the beginning, and made the speech. What I think he could do is sit back with his colleagues on his side of the coalition and ask them, the triumphalist idea that they had here, in my view, is not consistent with what the president himself spoke about. The president was very, very conciliatory in many ways, and I think that should be applauded. So for that, I think he has some homework on his coalition to do. But overall, I think we are better for the fact that the speech was made than that it wasn't.
Wow. Okay. Experts Kwame Owino from the Institute of Economic Affairs, Bob Nkangi, a governance expert, formerly Committee of Experts, and Edward Kisangani, our resident political analyst. We're back with the business in a moment.